Darkness, monsters, plants.
Hey, Composer Gloves here, and this is a melodic drum and bass video. Let me really quick play what I have here. So I did just finish out the track and give it a lot of listening, and I think I'm pretty much creatively where I want to be. Now, it's this pre-mixed down, so it hasn't been mixed yet. There's been some like elementary stuff, but I saw it mostly as a sound design thing, occasionally a little bit of mixing. So let me play it real quick, and then I'll tell you what I did. That's pretty much going to be this video, is explaining some of the things I did to sort of fill out the track and make it more interesting. So here it is. It is approximately, well, I can tell you exactly how long. So it's 3 minutes and... Come on. Oh, doesn't want to take me up there. All right, it's about 3 minutes and 19 seconds, somewhere around there. Okay, so here it is. I'm gonna lengthen it out so there. I like having a little bit of time for it to ring out and stuff. Okay, so that is the track. I'm not gonna lie. I'm reasonably happy with where it's at. In fact, I struggle to find things that I want to really change. There's definitely mixing moves I plan to try and there's gonna be, it's gonna sound way cleaner when I do a mix down. So I record doing that just because I feel like watching people do mix downs is a good thing. So, okay, so what are some of the things that I did here? Well, the first off, from the last video, the big one is this whole section exists now. Notice I didn't really change this. I came back, listened to it, and sometimes when you're making it, you're way more critical of yourself that you come back and you're like, oh, that was pretty okay. There's still some melodic ideas I could try changing, but I kind of dig the direction it went. So I was okay with that. Okay. So let's just go from the beginning. Now you'll notice here there's a whole bunch of additional EQs at the beginning, like a whole bunch of additional parameters. That's because I added 3 EQs to change the reverb during this part, which it is now way more reasonable. Most of these EQs are, in fact, they are on, let me see this, F5, no, not F5, is it F9 for the mixer? F5 is the playlist, F9 is the mixer. So, okay, I really like the space I have here. It's gonna be nice when I do some mixing too. Okay, so the things that are doing the reverb are the layer lead, which is over here, and you'll notice the EQ is over here, and it's just some general cuts, and where's some additional... Oh yeah, you might be wondering also why I'm wearing a plastic thing. I went to and did some service at this place called the Bishop Storehouse. It's where Mormons store their bishops when they're not using them. It's for people who don't have food, and so they have this voluntary place where you can go and render some service and just help. You just like unpack bananas and put, unpack all this food. You fulfill food orders, stuff like that. They have to go and get a special paper that says they can even get food from there. They like look at their situation, and then the bishop writes out what they want and stuff. So I'm wearing a weird thing because I just never took it off. So, okay. In case you're wondering. So, yeah. So the EQs again. This EQ, man. Layer lead. What else is in this? There's another thing in this part. Oh, it's on the lead, the main lead too. Square. And here you can see it here, and you see it's got just some high cuts, some of this mid stuff. You might be thinking when you hear this high stuff that it's, oh, those are the frequencies. It's got to be those high frequencies that are hurting my ears. They're actually more often than not in the 1K, 2K range, the lower stuff, because our ears are most sensitive to those frequencies. So, because that's the frequencies we talk at. So you're going to want to look there if you want to fix stuff like that. And here I also, another thing, now that I remember, is I put one on the reverb itself. And so over here, I have to add these to tell it to turn off at the beginning and turn on over here. So that's what those are. Okay, coming through here, it didn't really change anything here. I really actually quite like the intro. I enjoy it. And it's very smooth. I feel like the ideas just merge into one another. This moment right here, I like that moment. Okay, let's see here. I don't believe I changed anything really right here. So this thing, we added this last time. I added it again over here, and it's just a small thing. And you'll notice I took the plug sub thing, the thing that controls the maximum value for the automation. I brought it down. So it's just a little background element. So it just feeds into it really nicely. Because of the way it arrives right here, because it goes, and then this is your first moment where the drums come in, right? First drum moment. So it's already big from the drums. So I figure I'll let the drums hit it. So people will hit it and they'll be excited and they'll be like, all right. And then the bass comes in. It gets even better. So I feel like it's a good, like it drops right there, but then it gets even sweeter as we go. So I kind of liked that element of the whole thing. The melody and everything, it all just kind of sits well together. This is fine. Didn't change anything really over here. I added this guy right here. So you could go through and make a bunch of your own impact sounds. They're basically kicks mixed with various reverbs and claps and noise, and it's like a whole science. I find it easier to make them in separate sessions and then pull them out when you need them. It's not super easy to go through and make one. Like it is, but it distracts you from your creative, you're actually making the composition part. So I tend to go for samples. And so this is a Vengeance sample. And then over here, this is another, so this is noise. Sounds like this. Wow, it's quite loud actually. And it comes in right here slowly, and that gives rise to make the kicks, those hits sound like they do. So I have, another thing that I changed right here is I did some arranging. I'll talk about that in a sec. But these elements right here, what are these elements? Well, people expect these elements to be here, but they don't give them conscious attention. When they're not there, it sounds empty. When they're there, it sounds full. And what it is, you know, you expect them to be there. They don't draw your attention like, oh, this is like what I'm supposed to be paying attention to during this moment of the song. But they're like in the background. They're like, you see the dancers on the stage, and you know there are fireworks going off behind them or lights or whatever, but you don't pay attention to the lights. But if it's just dancers with no lights, then it's a little more noticeable. Like it sounds empty. More attention's brought to the dancers. Not necessarily more. But anyways, these are things that could go on in the background and they're fine and they keep interest. They make it more interesting. If it was just dancers, you could get bored. But with the lights, like, oh, this is a little more interesting dancing. It looks a little more complex, and it really is. And so some of the art is just finding samples of things that you can meld in and out to create a soundscape that's interesting and makes sense and is conducive to itself. But yeah, so these are background elements. This is another one, a good transitional element too. So this impacts like this really help. So, and I turned it down quite a bit actually. It's not very loud. It's just there to be one of those elements that sort of reinforces the idea that you've moved to a new idea. So as you see, very easy. Now, something that I do, I always set up a bus, and I've become bus 17. I just expect it to be there. It's my reverb delay bus. I use this so much, and it's always on 17. So I know if I want something to go through a reverb and then go through a delay at a quarter, you see it's at a step 4 measure thing. So it's quarter notes and 4/4. And it is, so yeah, all those things fit together quite nicely. Now this arrangement thing, before I forget, oh, there's something else I really quick need to talk about too. It's just a lot of changes. The big hits, I changed it back to big cinematic hits, and it was quite, there's a lot of sub because of this guy. I mean, if you got good speakers, you can hear that. There's a ton of sub on that. So I messed with the notes and changed them up to get hits that I liked, that I felt pretty cool. And this is going to be kind of sweet on a bigger system, on a way big system. You will feel that it will be a pretty big moment, really cool. Okay, so at the beginning here, there's this part where the strings go lower. I rearranged it so they went higher and sort of thinned out because I reached this part where they're all high and only triads and junk. So I did a little bit of arranging. This is music theory. Like if you're asking me to explain how I made my decisions, you just don't understand music theory yet. So you need to go watch my MIDI music theory or music theory from the ground up, where I do it in, if you know how to read music, it's even better. Okay, so those are 2 arrangement things that I did, but there's another one. You remember that dissonance I talked about or in earlier videos, somewhere in there? Well, I changed it to be a little bit different, and the offending thing was not in the strings. Pattern 4, it's this guy. It was this combination of this guy, not really this guy. Actually, I probably could have left him alone. And no, the B actually, it sort of doesn't fit because I go to A, but because it's already been there, it makes sense. And I could get into all sorts of chordal theory and stuff like that, but at the time I was working with it, it wasn't really that hard to figure out. So anyways, it sounds quite nice now. There's no dissonance, but it is quite an interesting harmonic movement into this movement. So it's really kind of a cool thing. I'll play it for you real fast. Yeah, so that used to be dissonant, no longer dissonant. I decided, I'll see what I can do with that. Another element where I don't believe I did that. I believe I did this with you in the previous video. This is just another spot where I put in a thing, a transitional element. Really, really helps. This melody, I didn't really do anything to that. I left this alone for the most part. Added in a new bass thing because it wasn't coming in the way I wanted. And you'll notice I brought it down. Well, sometimes, so I had it coming in. So I wanted that big bong, like whatever that sound is, okay? And I needed to get a little softer, come back up. These are just really, really slight timbral changes, but they made a big difference. And another thing I did on the merged clips, I added a sub. This is the sub. So I added this up, and it's not necessarily always playing the root note. So it's kind of interesting. I introduced the concept of inversions here. I didn't really do it like thinking, oh yeah, I'll do this inversion and that inversion. I'll make these cadences and blah, 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 music theory, music theory. I just sort of went with, at the time, what looked like the best idea to go with. So it wasn't like some crazy thought out process. Let's see, what else? So here's that element again, but this time it serves as a riser instead of a thing. You notice I have this volume automation, so it comes in, like that. Over here, it's a riser, and I reversed it and have a volume automation going the other way, and it helps a lot. Now this goes through channel 17, so it goes when it lets go, which is kind of a cool thing. And then I have another impact sound. So great, those impact sounds. See, and these things they just push it forward. They're expected to sort of be there by the listener, and when they happen, they are so satisfying. So I decided to just leave those, where they were. It sounds good. Now, another thing, I was looking for places to put sort of cooler samples that I just don't mess with very often. I found this weird metal folder amongst the samples that come from Machine. So I messed with some of these. You notice they're going into 17, and I combined it with this one. And together they create this really cool little like embellishment right there. It's just the right moment to do it, because here I break off back into the drums for just a little bit, and then I break off and end it with some pretty basic theory and my melody. Because I know I wanted to recap this idea from over here because it was a pretty strong idea. So I figured, hey, I'll bring it back over here, and then I'll change up the end, and then we'll just end on that melody. So this is not a very common way to end a track. Just so you know, it's not. But I like being unique, so whatever. Here it is. So it's just a nice moment. So nice. So. Yeah, so I believe that's it. Those are all the additional changes I made. Now these changes, though, they might sound simple when you're doing them, but they require a lot of listening, a lot of thinking about, do I want this here or do I not want this here? What kind of sample would fit here the best? What kind of processing do I need to do the sample? These are the things that you listen for, because if you put these things in bad places, like at the moment, you may have listened to this one thing on a loop. Like when I was writing this, I may have listened to this like 100 times or 50 times or something. And then I put this one thing in here, and it sounds great because I've listened to it so many times. But then when I go back and listen to it from the beginning the next day on a fresh listen, it's going to sound like, what the heck? There's going to be too many of these elements or too few, or it's going to be in a weird spot. You're going to have all these weird things. So you got to do a lot of listening from the beginning, which is why I didn't want to sort of put you through that. But when you want to make tasteful decisions about where things should go, that's what you're going to want to do. So yes, so that's why I didn't really record that part. It's just a lot of listening. So go watch my listening for inspiration if you're really curious about that sort of philosophy. That's really it for this part. So this is pretty much filled out track. I plan to mix it, master it, and call it good with this one. It's actually sounding pretty clean in some spots, but of course the spots where a lot of elements are, like the kick gets buried, my lead disappears over here a little bit. It depends on where I want to draw their attention, so we'll see. But if you have any questions about this, let me know. Subscribe. If I missed something that you're like, hey, you changed this and didn't talk about that, then also let me know. Maybe I'll remember. Maybe I won't. I probably won't remember a lot of the small details they changed about this in like a couple days from now. I'll be changing new things. Subscribe again and have a blessed day.